Hello, commercial law students. I'm about to post a video regarding negotiation, but before I do that, I would like to complete our assignment on negotiability. And so let us take a look at where we left off, which was problem 100. And it says a paragraph in a promissory note required the maker to give written notice to the holder of the note in the event that the maker wanted to make a prepayment of the principal amount. Okay. What do you think in your gut? Does that destroy negotiability? Is that a problem? Before even reading on, no. All it says is that the maker of the note is going to give notice to the holder to prepay it. This is something that's good. Again, good for the holder. I don't mind that there's notice. I'd like to get notice so I can start picking out, my Porsches before I get paid the note that you owe me. So I like that. But no, prepayment, we know prepayment is fine. And this is a kind of a provision that is related to prepayment. It's good for the debtor. The holder. It's good for the holder. And so it does not destroy negotiability. Okay, let's go on. Okay. Problem 100. Do the following clauses in a promissory note create bearer paper? Okay, we want to know whether this promissory note that we have is a bearer paper or not. So we look at it and A says pay to John Smith. No, that's not bearer paper. That's not bearer paper. That's not order paper. That is not negotiable paper. And so Article 3 doesn't apply, and it's just a contractual IOU. So we toss it out of the whole ball game. Okay. Promissory note with the language "pay to John Doe's estate." That's fine, but it's again, it doesn't have the order language. You need to have payment to the estate or order. So it doesn't. You either have to have bearer language or order language. You could have bearer language, you can have order language, or you can have neither, which is what we have here in these first two parts of the problem. Just promise to pay an entity, but it has no order language and it has no bearer language. So be one or the other. Pay to the order of John Smith or bearer. Okay, well now this is just a confused person that would write that. You typically want to write one or the other. Is it order of paper so that you require the signature of the person to whom it's made out to or negotiated to in order to negotiate it further? Do you not want to require that signature, or do you not? Do you just want to turn it into bearer paper so it can be negotiated just by the transfer of possession? But here, the person chose both to the order of the payee and then or to bearer. And so we're just going to, what the courts will do is interpret it in the most broad way possible and just call it bearer paper. It's bearer paper there. Okay. Pay to bearer. Well, that is bearer paper. Pay to the order of cash. And that is bearer paper. Pay to a Merry Christmas. That is also bearer paper. When it's paid to, fictional and absurd, if there's an absurdity in the payee line, then it's intended, as we know, to be just treated as cash. That's why Grandmama sends us these checks made out to Merry Christmas, because she just wants us to be able to go and cash them, and that's how banks will treat it. But Grandmama is not savvy when it comes to commercial law because she's created bearer paper again, which again, if it's stolen, the thief becomes a holder and can go and enforce it. So it's best if your grandma makes it out to you personally that it's order paper and can only be negotiated, can only come into the hands of another holder with your signature. Okay. And I do want to cast your eyes on the law that makes all of this a reality. It's not just my view of the world. But here, if the promise or order does not state a payee, then it's going to be bearer paper. This is all things that make paper bearer paper. So if it's payable to bearer, or to the order of bearer, or otherwise indicates that the person in possession is entitled to payment, then it's bearer paper. If it does not state a payee, it's bearer paper. If it's payable to cash, then it's bearer paper, or otherwise indicates it's not payable to an identified person, and that's what brings in the Merry Christmas. Well, it's not payable to an identified person. It's kind of like being, not stating a payee at all if you just write Merry Christmas. So it's treated as bearer paper. An instrument payable to any, let's see, okay, that's not too interesting. So those are the things I wanted you to be aware of. And let's go back now to the problems and see where we stand. We are at problem 102 to wrap up this part of our course. Do the following clauses create order paper, bearer paper, or do they make the instrument non-negotiable for failure to create either? Pay to the order of blank, it's bearer paper, as we were just reading. If there's no payee, it's bearer paper. Promissory note with the language, pay to John Doe's estate, not bearer's paper. There's no order language. Pay to the order of the President of the United States. Yes, it's order paper. That's fine. And it's going to be payable by the person who holds that office under 3110C24. Whoever's President of the U.S. Will be able to be a holder of that paper. Good. That's all. So you can use the office in lieu of the person. It'll just be whoever is holding that office will be the holder of the check or the promissory note. The drawer of a check drew a line through the words "the order of" that are printed on the check. Is the check as altered negotiable? If the drawer of a check or the maker of a promissory note wants to destroy negotiability, what should be done? And why would this ever be desirable? Well, okay. Now, first of all, what if you take a check and it says pre-printed, pay to the order of, and then the line, and you strike out the order language? You remember at the beginning of this segment, I impressed upon you the imperative need for order language in an instrument. Otherwise, it's not going to be negotiable. It's got to be either payable to bearer or payable to a person to order. And so what's the effect on a check if you scratch out the order language? And the answer is nothing. It is still negotiable. It's an exception for a check. Checks do not have to have order language because the world assumes that it's negotiable. Again, it's custom. We know that checks are negotiable, and so even if they don't have order language, we're so familiar with checks, we know they're intended to be money substitutes. And so generally, you need bearer or order language to be negotiable, but in the case of a check, when the drawee is a bank, you do not need order language. You can just say pay to John Smith, and it'll still be negotiable. It's subject to Article 3. Now, how can you destroy negotiability, and why might you want to? That is a very interesting question. And the answer to this question is this. In order to destroy negotiability, you simply add something to the promissory note that will destroy negotiability. Add other clauses that create, these additional undertakings or promises. Add something conditional. That will destroy negotiability. Or simply, and this is the better way to do it, simply write at the top of the instrument that it's non-negotiable in conspicuous terms, and that destroys negotiability. But why would you want to destroy negotiability? That is the most interesting question. And the reason is this, that you do want to sign an IOU, you want to promise someone that you're going to pay them, but you don't want to sign a negotiable instrument that will allow, let's say I contract for a painter to paint a portrait of me in front of the flag of the United States of America. And I sit for the painting, and in the beginning of the transaction, I signed a contract with him and signed a promissory note that I would pay you $10,000 in 6 months to you, painter Matisse, whatever his name is, Van Gogh, or to order. So I give him a promissory note. But the problem is that I don't want to give him a negotiable promissory note, because what Van Gogh is going to do, this painter, is he's going to take that promissory note, and he's poor. He's a poor painter. He doesn't want to wait 6 months. He's going to run down to the local bank and say, do you guys buy promissory notes? Where can I go? He's going to find maybe a financier, an agency, a factor that buys promissory notes. And he's going to sell it. And the face value is 10 grand. Maybe he sells it for 9,000 or 8,000. He's perfectly happy. He's got 8 grand in his pocket. So now, though, the problem is that if it's a negotiable instrument, this factor, this person who buys debt, is going to become a holder, because Van Gogh is going to negotiate it over to him properly. He's going to sign it and give it to this factor. And now the factor is going to become a holder from the proper negotiation, whether it's in blank or specially endorsed to the factor. The factor is going to be the holder, and as we'll see in the near future, the factor is going to be a holder in due course. And what does that mean now? That the factor can come to me in 6 months and say, pay this $10,000. And if I say, well, the painting was horrific, it made me look like Bugs Bunny, something my 3-year-old could have done, and I'm not going to pay that, the factor is going to say, I'm sorry. Again, of course, he's going to say, I'm sorry, Your Honor, that Professor Sundahl was the victim of this art fraud, but I'm a holder in due course and have to be paid regardless. I'm immune from all these defenses that the product was bad. And the judge is going to take down the gavel and make me pay the $10,000. And that is why I do not want to sign a negotiable instrument, because I want to pay the artist, but I only want the artist to be able to enforce the instrument, so that when he, as we'll see, as we'll get a little deeper into this, if that artist, sues me and says pay up, then I will be able to raise the defense that the art was horrific and he doesn't deserve to be paid. But if a holder in due course comes into possession of the promissory note, I won't be able to raise those arguments. So it's like paying cash. Sometimes you don't want to pay cash. It's better to sign an IOU, a non-negotiable promise to pay, so that you can refuse to pay later on if the job isn't done. So that's the end of that assignment, and we'll see you soon.